Hello everyone.
हेलो।
Hi Rohi. Okay. Let's make it a start. Okay. So until the last session, we were looking into these notes and we were also trying to install the MySQL database on your laptop. So did that work? Rohi, I think you are on mute.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Sorry, did you ask something?
Yeah, so we were looking into the MySQL database installation, right? So did it
Yes.
succeed on your laptop?
Yeah, it was installed. Yeah, but I was not able to. I was not able to give it a go to launch it or to get it
Okay,
working.
okay,
It was, however, it was installed successfully.
okay, okay. Then let's cover some part of the session first, and then maybe we can go through the tools, because I think all we need to do is to start the service, and then we should be able to connect. So let's see. Okay. Uh, So yes, we were in the last session discussing mainly on the important life cycle items, right? So we were looking into the importance of understanding the problem. We were looking into the process of hypothesis building. This combined can be known as, let's say, requirement gathering, where there are two important aspects of this requirement gathering phase that comes into play. One being to be able to formulate a process so that we can perform the requirement gathering, right? Or in a nutshell, you can also say that we may need to create a process which is going to govern the entire, let's say, delivery or the life cycle of the projects which we are going to work on, right? So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is, let's say, uh, are we going to structure, or how are we going to structure our approach so that we ask the right questions in the right way to the right audience, that we get the expected answers, because we ourselves don't know what to expect, right? Because if we are joining, let's say, a company or a team, or an environment where we are supposed to perform, let's say, statistical analysis or a data science, or let's say machine learning, at the first place, we, being new to the environment, to the culture, to the people, to the business, we will not be aware of how things are going to work out, right? So we will need to have, we will definitely need to have uh, a discussion. We will definitely need to have not only one, but let's say a series of, let's say, discussions, which will lead to kind of a thought process, which will lead to kind of, let's say, documentations, which we are going to develop, which we are going to create, and then finally we will come to a situation where we will have, or we would have gathered enough information that we know the requirements, or we understand the problem statement. So once we understand the problem statement, the rest of the game is going to start, right? So how this can be structured, this is a very, very important thing to understand. And to simplify this, let's just try to write down a few things. Okay, so there is no such ideal process, or there is no such thing that we have to do this or we have to do that. But if I talk about, let's say, requirement analysis itself, so let me just add a few lines in this notepad so that I can make it big. And so I'm going to talk about, let's say, requirement analysis. If I'm going to talk about requirement analysis only, the phases of, let's say, requirement analysis which we come across. So first of all, we have to understand the problem, right? We have to understand the problem in depth. We have to understand what is the exact requirement, right? What is the requirement that we are looking for? Example given, there can be, when we ask this kind of questions, right, to business or to anybody for that matter, often more than not we get very kind of very, very subjective, no, I'm sorry, I should say non-subjective answers, right? Example given, let's say, if I'm trying to understand, or if I'm told that this is a problem that I'm supposed to solve as a data scientist, what usually these statements are like, our sales are, let's say, declining, what should we do? Or maybe the company needs to increase the market share, right? How shall we proceed? Or let's say company is incurring huge losses, as we have seen in the last 6 months or 1 year. How do we cut them down, right? Or maybe even worse, there is a new competitor in the industry which is affecting our profits. What should be done? Now, in these questions, right? The problem is that these one-liner questions are never going to help anyone solve the problem, because if we or as we already know, a question well defined is a problem half solved. If the question is not defined in the right way, right, then we are not going to find the right answer, right? A wrong approach to solving any of the cases which we just talked about will only lead us to jump to conclusions and recommend solutions based on some kind of a conclusion that we are going to jump on, right? Because the suggestions made will be very open ended and they will provide no guarantee that the problem will be solved. Why? Because the question itself was not subjective, the question itself was not pinpoint, the question itself was so broad that the answer would also be very broad, right? Now, if you take an example from the case above, let's say, I mean, the questions that we just asked, right? So one of the questions which we asked is that, let's say the business is trying to reduce the losses incurred by uh, a company. Okay, just to put some context, let's say this company is an online advertising company, and the company wants to overall reduce the number of losses or the amount of losses that we are having. Then what that person or the person who is asking you the question, what that person is going to suggest is that, I just want to know what should be the overall way in which I can solve this problem, because the question itself is very vague, right? The question is like, how can I reduce the losses that I have, right? If that's the kind of question which is asked to a data scientist, then the person who is working as a data scientist is going to obviously suggest a very vague answer, something like the price per advertisement to charge the customers is very low, right? Maybe you can increase the rates and increase the prices, right? So what it essentially means is, it's kind of a favorable solution. Is it, if the problem is understood or uh, im, it's imagined to be in that area, right? We don't know in which area, in which aspect, in which specific zone that problem lies, and we don't know that because we have not defined the problem at the first place. If we would have defined the problem rightly, then would have got the right solution. Now, this is a very well known thing, because even in this example, maybe you will come to know, maybe that company comes to know, or maybe you as a data scientist later on come to know after a lot of root cause analysis and a war room kind of the situations, that the actual problem, the huge losses the company was facing, was not at all because of the expenditure on the advertisement itself. Maybe it was because of the inefficiency within the internal teams, right? The day and day on, when companies increase by their size, there are a lot of internal teams which are getting created. It is quintessential that they should talk to each other very well, their bonding should be very well, their processes should be very easy, their processes should be there. I mean, without process an organization cannot run. But for the sake of processes, we should not be giving up the chances of doing improvements, and that is usually what happens when you are too much focused on two processes, which might lead into inefficiency of the internal teams. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be a case with all the companies. I'm just saying that maybe in this case, in this advertising company, after a lot of research and root cause analysis and so on, we as a data scientist, as well as a person from that business side of things who asked that question, came to that same kind of a conclusion that maybe this has happened because there are teams in my company who are very inefficient while dealing with each other, or maybe the services that we are providing is actually of very bad quality. It was not a very bad quality when we started off, right? When we started off, it was quite good, people were liking it. Over a period of time, maybe we have taken that statement or that emotion for granted, and then what we have done is that we have not really given it a traction, we have not really looked into how to make the products even better. We may not have the processes or systems to understand where the products are going wrong, right? And that is the reason why we are in a position that we are facing losses, because the products itself are not good, Hence people are, let's say, returning it and asking for a refund, right? So just to take this into a very light note or into a very simple way, we cannot really rely on luck when you are working as an employee, right? In this kind of a context, let's say in the context of, let's say, solving data science problems, we are not really supposed to rely on luck. We are supposed to rely on the data. And that is the reason why this field is first of all known as, let's say, data science. The second reason is that to apply science, obviously you need the data, but to apply science, you need the right question as well, right? You need the right question as well. Why? Because if you don't try to formalize the question at the first place, the biggest problem you will face is the entire process, okay, from starting from the asking of this question, or this question being asked being the first step, and then there are many more steps which is going to come. The entire process is simply going to take too much of time, and the time to market is really going to get impacted, because from the time you are in the ideation stage until the time you have gone to production, if at all you are going to reach the production stage, which itself is a doubtful thing for me, if you are going to ask such kind of, let's say, vague questions. If at all you reach the production stage, it becomes very difficult for you to gauge the ROI, because maybe you have spent a lot of money for 1 year or 6 months, and then finally you were not able to reach to production, or maybe you did, and then whatever implementations we could do after a lot of to and fro and things, and that the kind of, let's say, benefit that we are reaping out of it is very small. Instead, if we would have questioned it in the right way, if we would have framed the question in the right way, then we would have got a lot of advantages. We would have saved a lot of time, we would have saved a lot of efforts, and we would have at least shipped some kind of minimal viable product at the right point in time, which we did not do. Why? Because obviously the question which we were asking was wrong. That's it. The main problem here is the question which we were asking was wrong, right? Now, how do we say that the question we were asking is wrong? The question which we were asking is wrong because it was not a complete question, right? It was not a complete question. Now, this will more often than not be the case. The questions which we are going to come to you, the questions which are going to come to you are never going to be 100% accurate, are never going to be really formalized. Example given, if I am going to tell you that, let's say, I have a company which sells snacks, and bases the data of the last 6 months from two factories which I have in Mumbai and Pune city, I would like to find out if there is any variation in the rates of its the production of those snacks. Given the fact that I have so and so data, and the average production per day is so and so and so and so and so. So this example that I gave right now, right? It's actually not a excellent example, or the world's best question, but it's far better than the question which we were asking earlier. The earlier questions were too vague. Now the question is at least a bit centered towards something, and I'm also providing you with some numbers. Maybe those numbers are going to help, maybe the numbers won't help you, right? But at least you have some kind of an intuition as to what the business is looking for, right? So that's the first step. This is a very difficult step, and this is where a very common technique known as design thinking will come into play. I will quickly tell you what is going to be design thinking, but we will need some time. So let's go stage by stage. So we will look at the stages first, and then we'll see what or how, where, when, and so on. So the first thing is to understand the problem, right? To that end, first you need to get familiar with the team, with the company, with the product. Irrespective of whether we are solving an internal problem, whether we are solving a problem with that company towards its clients and so on, it's really not really relevant. But it's still advised that we really have to verify our understanding with all the respective parties who are involved into this discussion. If you are not going to do that, then that will be a very problematic kind of situation, because then again, as I explained, it's going to go in loops. Now, let's say suppose a client comes to you, or maybe you have a client uh, for whom you are working as a data scientist, or a company or a team where you are working as a data scientist, and a person from the business side comes to you seeking help in, let's say, planning a marketing campaign. They want to launch a new marketing campaign, right? And then they are asking you for your help, right? In that case, what should we try to understand the problem? This is a very important question. What should I ask, right? What are the questions I should be asking to the different teams and people that I should be in a position to solve the problem, right? So first of all, I think if I would have been doing this, I would have first of all known what this company or this team is actually doing, which industry they are involved into, which markets they are really catering in. Are they really multinational, or let's say they are uh, uh, subdued, or let's say concentrated towards a few markets, a few countries rather than a lot of countries? Then what kind of consumers do we have here? We have the details about the consumers. Do we know what those consumers really are, right? Maybe the consumers are kids, maybe the consumers are adults, and so on. So it's kind of the properties of the company, the industry where it is, the markets where it is working, the consumers which the company has. Then I must also brush up my marketing concepts, right? I should be able to brush up my marketing concepts as well. So I need to understand the terminologies. I need to, maybe I'll do a quick kind of, let's say, um, marketing 101 kind of a course, right, from some online place, maybe YouTube or maybe Udemy, because I just want to acquaint myself with the words, with the terminologies which are going to get used. Why is that the case? Is because at later stage, if I don't understand the business lingo, then people who are from the other side of the town, people who are in the business itself, they are not really technical people like me. They will be using their own language, they will be using their own way of explaining things, they will be using specific keywords when they're explaining things, right? So if I'm working with somebody who is from an investment banking background, or who is into the stock market kind of thing, he may be using terms like LCTG, long term capital gain. But if I don't know what is LTCG, if I don't know what is long term capital gain, then it is very difficult for me to understand what he's talking about. So to get the context, I need to understand some basics. So that process is going to help. Now, how do we encourage this process, or how do we uh, progress with this? Okay, a very simple way to progress with this is to, first of all, during understanding the problem, we have to write down the problem. Let me just uh, elaborate this part. So first of all, we are going to write down the problem. Okay, maybe we are going to write some kind of blogs or documents or pages and so on. Then what we can do is that we have to explore the context. And while we explore the context, this is where a very specific thing comes into picture, and that is known as interview. Now, usually what we think about when we hear the word interview is that interview is when a company, which is a multinational company, is asking me or calling me for an interview for the role of a Java developer. Why is that called an interview? Is because there is somebody who is going to ask me questions, right? Somebody who is going to gauge my technical skills, my, let's say, functional skills, my speaking skills, and so on. And then that person is going to make a call whether I am really eligible or fit to the team where, or fit to the company or the department where I'm being hired for. So this is an interview. So simply put, interview is just a process where one person is asking you questions and you are supposed to answer those questions. Or somebody is actually asking you questions expecting answers from you. Right? It is not always a fact that in each and every interview you will be able to answer each and every questions. That's obviously a fact that we will not be aware of all the things, all the aspects, right? So there will be cases where we will have to apologize and say that we may not be aware of this point, and hence we will not be able to answer the question. But it is expected, at least, right? It is expected by the interviewer in this case that I should be able to answer the questions, right? So the same technique we have to apply with people whom we are going to talk to, or the same process applies over here. So interview is not only about finding jobs, it's also a very important part of the life cycle of a data scientist, where you have to ask good questions, and this comes with experience. This is actually an art. So this will come out of experience. On the first day, you will be asking a lot of idiotic questions. There is no problem in it. But over a period of time, you will have to improve the way you are talking. You have to improve the way you are sitting in front of a person. You have to improve the way in which you are going to question that person, so that the person doesn't feel as if he's getting interrogated at a police station, maybe. So you have to make it very comfortable for the person sitting in front of you. But you have to ask very valid questions. The right way of asking questions should be employed, and in that way only you should be able to extract a lot of information. And this is what is entirely known as exploring the context. The context of the problem will be explored, and we will be able to add to this write up that we have done for this problem, right? So if we have created any documentation, or if we are creating any documentation, these kind of question and answer sessions will help in there, right? Then the next stage what we do is that we validate that understanding. Okay, so to validate the understanding, there is a very simple technique which you can use, is that you can do a reverse interview. Okay, or you can do a reverse session. So what you do is that you can create a meeting. You can set up a meeting with these stakeholders. Okay, you can set up a meeting with the stakeholders, and you can simply tell them that, sir, I would like to have this meeting in a way as if I am giving you a training, and I will be sharing all my knowledge to you that I have gathered throughout the series of interviews that I have done. I would strongly recommend that you please don't stop me when I'm talking. But once I'm done, maybe during the speech, you can write down what all mistakes I have done. And then at the end of the day, we are going to have kind of an open forum where you can clearly tell me where I've understood things wrongly, or where things have gone wrong. Or maybe if it is too big a problem, maybe you can interrupt me then and there, and you can ask me that, or you can actually correct me, right? So validation of the understanding is really very important. Now this concludes understanding of the problem. We have not looked into the process, which we will do. Okay, don't worry, we will be looking into the process. The process is a bit weird at the first place, but the process works. Okay, the second stage of doing this activity is, now we are going to come down to some actual, let's say, data science work which we have learned as of now, which is to formulate the hypothesis. We have to formulate the hypothesis first, and here we can pick a set of frameworks. Okay, we can pick a set of frameworks which we are going to use, pick a set of tools which we are going to use. Okay, we can clearly write down, or extend the earlier, let's say, documentation, extend earlier documentation with the hypothesis. Okay, also very important, validate the hypothesis. Okay, this is really important because it may well be the case that, basis my understanding, I created a null hypothesis and an alternate hypothesis, and after that I come to know that my assumption of that null hypothesis itself was wrong. Okay, that's not what we are looking for, or that's not what the pain point is. So then that is wrong, right? Because you have spent a lot of time and effort, and then you come to know that it's all going wrong. Then that's not really good, right? So that's it. Now in this stage, what we have done is we have simply recorded the hypothesis by picking a set of framework, and then we have also validated the hypothesis, or I can say, or its usefulness, right? The third stage, right? The third stage, now we are ready to do some actual work. The third stage is going to be collect the data, right? So relevant to the hypothesis, the understanding, the problem statement, everything that we have understood, right? What we have to do is, now we have to collect the data. A good approach to collect the data is, first of all, let's list all the data sets I need. Okay, basis my understanding, what kind of data sets I will be needing. Will I be needing the company details? Will I be needing employee details? Will I be needing the details of clients of that company? Will I be needing details of only the people working in the marketing department, or do I need the details of all the people? Do I at all need the details of the people? If I'm going to, let's say, again, going back to that example, when I was designing a marketing campaign, I was asked to design a marketing campaign. Is that really required for me to get the details of the people who are going to create the marketing campaign, or people who are going to drive the campaign? Are their educational qualifications really important? Maybe you don't know. Maybe they have the right set of skills. Maybe they are good in speaking. Maybe they are artistic, right? If they are coming from that kind of a background, maybe you are never going to tell a PhD or a scientist to go out in the market and do the marketing, right? That's not really the cup of tea for a scientist or somebody coming from a mathematics kind of a background. So the choice of a proper person doing that activity is also very important. So maybe you will need that data. So think about it and try to list down all the data sets that you might need. It's not only about the data that you have available right away, it's also to devise or also to figure out that we need XYZ data. And when I say we need it, I mean that we need it, right? So we have to do something, we have to change something, we have to implement something, or we have to let go of something. Okay, whatsoever that something might be, but it should not be impacting the business. So the constraint is like, without impacting the business, I create the sources of data recording, and I ensure that this data sets are actually collected, or I am in a position to collect this data, right? So once I have the list of all the data sets, what I am going to do is that I'm going to request for the data or its access, right? So either I'm going to ask somebody to get the data, maybe I'll ask people to give me the data, that's one way. The other way is maybe I'm working in that company only, or else I have signed an NDA. So can you give me access to your database and I can figure it out myself? You can give me the data definition language kind of a document, right? So if you remember the DDL statements which we fired into MySQL database, if you can explain me the columns which are there in the table, if you can give me the ER diagram, if you can tell me whether it is a star schema or something else, then I should be able to back engineer it and I should be able to figure out what is going on over there. And relating that to the business, I'll be able to understand the context of each and every table or its usefulness and the columns which are there in the table and so on, right? So that kind of a collection is really important. The third, and this is really important, validation stage comes everywhere. As you see, a validation came here as well. We validated the understanding. Here we validated the hypothesis. Now again, we are going to validate something which is really important, which is called data quality. If we are not serious about data quality, we are in a mess. We are in a big problem. If we don't have good quality of data, then there will be problem. Example given, let's say I'm working with the the IT engineers, the people who are solving customer problems, and they have a problem that many of their tickets, irrespective of how much good they are in coordinating the incidents are not giving them the results, or maybe they are not getting resolved on time, and then they are getting breached in terms of the SLA which they have to follow, and unnecessarily there comes problems their way. So being a data scientist, I am trying to help them to understand where this entire thing is going wrong. Now, if I don't have proper quality of data, let's say I have gathered the data and then I come to know that no, the data that I have collected is a very poor quality, because I do see that in many cases the person's name, or the person who solved the problem, his or her name itself is missing from the data. If that is the case, then how? Maybe, I mean, maybe that field is really not a very important field in the analysis purpose, which we will later on see also, that the identifier related to a certain individual or a situation on an artifact is never really a very good feature. We should always be dropping it. Examples include employee ID or employee name. These do not add any value to any statistical models, often, always, unless we are trying to do something else. Uh, so in that case, what happens is we may want to drop that field itself. Who is the resolver of the ticket or who handled that incident is not really a problem for me. But then such kind of validations must be applied, right? Such kind of validation should be applied. If let's say there is any marketing campaign which has a lot of data related to it, and there is a field which is talking about whether the campaign was ran through let's say TV, or whether it was ran through, let's say, uh, Facebook, right? So whether the campaign was ran as Facebook ads or whether it was ran as advertisements on the TV. Now, you may find in there that there are issues with the text, there are issues in the way the data is entered, there are issues in the way the data may have been entered incorrectly. All in all, let's say a certain type of ad is only supposed to come on Facebook, and as per the data, that ad has come onto TV on so and so date, whilst that ad does not even exist for a format in which you need it to be there to be aired into television, if you know what I mean. So you have created a textual ad. Maybe now you are not going to usually give a textual ad on a television, right? You can do it in a newspaper, you can do it in, let's say, Facebook, into social media. But when it comes to TV, you are going to do kind of an audiovisual, right, kind of things which are going to attract your customers, right? But irrespective of the fact that there are many rows in your data set, for example, where ads which are actually shown on Facebook are being classified into the category of, let's say, TV ads, right? Which is wrong. Now this comes with practice, this comes with understanding of the data, this comes with understanding of the business and so on. It's not going to happen, let's say, overnight, right? But this is really very important. The validation and ensuring that we have proper data quality is utmost. We have to do this. In some companies who take this really very seriously, it is a well-known fact that they also have dedicated people looking at MDM, otherwise known as Master Data Management. They're also looking at Enterprise Data Quality, EDQ. And these guys are very stringent when it comes to ensuring that you have the right amount of data, the right structure of data in your databases. Howsoever small the data might be, they are not bothered whether you have terabytes of data or not. Even if you have 10 GB of data, you need to ensure that that 10 GB of data is in a usable format. At any point in time, somebody has a question, that person should be able to answer X, Y, and Z. If not all the questions in his or her life, at least 3 questions, if not all. So they should be able to approach that question to you, and you as a data analyst or data scientist or anybody working with that data, maybe even as simple as a BI engineer, should be able to approach that problem, right? So data validation is really crucial. The fourth point, okay, the fourth point is analyze the data, right? This is something which we have seen very briefly when we looked into, let's say, the basics of statistics, when we have looked into ANOVA, P-test, T-test, Z-test, and so on, right? We have looked into these things shortly, briefly, and later when, as we are going to move towards, let's say, machine learning areas, we have to do a lot of, let's say, data analysis. So at that point in time, we will be going in depth and we will be doing a lot of, let's say, analysis of the data. This is really important. If you do not understand your data, okay, if you do not understand the data by picking up the right analytical approach, this is also really important subpart, you will not be able to, you will never be able to prove or reject the hypothesis. If you do not understand the data, things will not work. You might wonder, or you might think, why is it so important? I can simply create a few graphs and put it into a PPT, and my exploratory data analysis should be completed using some very basic functions from, let's say, pandas and matplotlib. Maybe I'm also going to use Power BI or maybe Tableau. If you don't understand the data, the variations or the variety, the characteristics of the data, then there will be repercussions which you are not able to, which you cannot control at a later stage. You have to again come back to that stage of doing the analysis. You have to reanalyze the data even more, and then you have to go ahead. This might sound a little vague right now, but I would strongly recommend you keep an eye on this, right? You have to park this question if you have any question on this specific point number 4, right? Or point number 3's last point of validation of the data quality. Please hold on to your thoughts. When we are done with these series of things related to requirement analysis or problem approach kind of a solution which we are trying to find out, Once we are done with that and we go to machine learning, we are going to take use cases and we are going to go ahead. So the moment we take use cases and we go ahead, right, this kind of a thing will be more clearer. You will come to know what is the actual importance of cleaning and analyzing the data and how it contributes to statistical modeling, right? Again, a validation stage. In each and every stage, you need a validation. It is as if you are working in a software team, you're working in a development team, and right beside you, there is a tester. Each and every function you are writing, that tester is so intrigued that he or she is testing each and every line of your code. So that is exactly what is happening here. We have to validate each and every stage, and that is exactly what we are doing over here. So, right, in each and every stage 1, 2, 3, and 4, we have the last step, which is the validation stage. Now in this case, the validation stage is to validate the relevance of the insights found from the analysis of the data. So as we are doing the analysis of the data, you will often then not come to know or come across situations where you will be eventually answering a lot of other questions other than the initial or the original hypothesis which was asked. So if the specific business question is Q1 or question number 1, then you will see that part of the analysis or output of the analysis has helped resolve question number 2, 3, and 4 as well. Where question 2, 3, and 4 was never asked at the first place because maybe they were not as important as question number 1. Maybe at that point in time, question number 1 is the most important question. So you need to solve or find the answer for question number 1 rather than 2, 3, and 4. But the more we analyze the data, we come to know information from the data, which helps solve other problems at later stage. Right? This is really important because we may get diverted. So it is very important to validate the relevance of the insights. If we are getting some insights, we must be in a position to validate it. If we are not going to validate it, there will be problems. We have to validate the relevance along with the business, along with people who may have data, along with all the parties which are required to be collaborated at this stage. Now, the last stage. The last stage is the most difficult stage, present findings. Why is this the most difficult stage? I'm going to tell you something, but I'm not going to write it over here. More often than not, when you are asked a question by some person in business, let's say this person, right? Let's say you are working as a data scientist and I am working in the business as a product owner. If I'm asking you, I need you to devise or I need you to tell me the reasons of losses for all of my products or set of these so and so products, as I could see in the last 6 months of reports. So I'm getting reports every week of sales and profits and all these things. And I can clearly see there is a drip. And you have to tell me what is the reason behind it. I will give you all the data I have, right? I will try and ensure it has the quality that you need. If not, then maybe you will have to use your data cleaning skills to ensure that the data is clean. But ultimately, when you have the data with you, you have to tell me what is the answer. So you have done step number 1, step number 2, 3, and 4. Now you are at a position where you have got the insights. You have to go to a meeting and you have to present. The biggest challenge, biggest blocker, biggest enemy of yours in that meeting is the same person who asked you the question. Why is that person going to be your enemy? Is because more often than not, okay, this is a situation for more than 75% of the cases. If somebody is asking a question, he or she is already psychologically, somehow that person is aware of the solution. Either the solution that he or she is aware is simply an assumption, or they have done some homework. Maybe they have already done steps 1 until 4, which you don't know, or they have some other people who have done that and they have already found something and they are hiring you as well only to validate the results found in the first pass or by some other contractual company. So the person who is asking you a question, let's say if there is a match going on, now we already know this is the IPL season, right? Example, I'm not really following the IPL, but just a very vague kind of an example. If Mumbai Indians is playing with the Rajasthan Royals, and I am a big fan of Mumbai Indians, not only because I stay close to Mumbai, but also because I know the Mumbai team is, let's say, having, or I assume that at least until the last year when there was no pandemic and all, at least until the last IPL, the Mumbai team was quite strong. I really liked the Mumbai team, irrespective of how many times they have won or lost. I really like people who are working in that team. They, as per my view, are really good players, irrespective of or contrary to the popular opinion or the opinions which are given by the so-called, it's a commentators, right? I am not really a critic when it comes to cricket, but I really like those people. I can't explain you why I do that. I may not really know the statistics behind that liking, right? But I really like the players in that team. If that is the situation, then somehow in my psychology, in the back of my mind, okay, my mind has already made up this that if there is a match between Mumbai Indians and the Rajasthan Royals, there is a very high probability that Mumbai Indians will win. And if they do not win, I actually get angry, right? It has nothing to do with my life. If Mumbai Indians does not win today, maybe in the next match they're going to win, right? You may even not be aware they may win a lot of other matches. If even if they have lost the first 3 matches, maybe they have lost the first 5 matches, and then they have won everything else, and ultimately they go on and win the IPL itself. You don't know. But because of those first 5 matches where I already had an intuition that my favorite team is Mumbai Indians should win. If they do not win, I am taking an anti kind of a state, and I am really getting very angry. Why I'm saying this to you is because the person who asked you the question, right, he or she has already got some answers in the back of their mind. If your answer does not match with theirs, there will be a fight. Please be prepared. Please be prepared for that fight. There is going to be a fight. I'm not going to say whether it's going to be a fist fight or whether it's going to be a kind of a WWE. It may not be of that stage, but there is going to be a fight. That fight may even be psychological. That fight may even be fight of words. That fight may even be political in nature, but there is going to be a fight because the moment you say something which that person is not already agreed with, you are going against that person who is eventually or who at the first place asked you the question, and that person will get angry, his ego will get hurt. As human beings, our egos get hurt very easily, and we will really oppose you to the best possible extent we can. Please be prepared for that. Presentation of findings is the most difficult stage to do because you already have people who have some preconceived ideas, and if they are proven wrong, they feel really bad, right? So please be prepared, right? The first thing you do to avoid such kind of problems is that you choose only the top findings. You don't find, you may have found, let's say, 20, 25 things. You can prioritize those basis the initial question or the initial hypothesis that you had. And then you present only the top findings. Okay, present only the ones which is relevant to the business question or the problem that you are trying to solve. Maybe you have solved another issue as well, but let's not talk about that right now. You can only talk about what is really relevant in this case, right? Then what you can do, you can present this entire thing with the findings into a story, right? So rather than giving it a very boring kind of a talk, right, you can actually make it in form of a story so that you can have some kind of confidence, let's say, developed inside the person who is hearing you, right? Inside the people who are going to look at your, let's say, presentation, they should get some kind of confidence on you, right? So to do that, maybe you can try to create a story, or let's say present the findings in form of a story. Again, Last but not the least, my favorite word, validate. Validate the message that you are trying to pass or the impact it is making. You will not be able to validate the finding until and unless you reach a stage in the machine learning workflow, in the data science workflow, in the data analysis workflow, irrespective of what you have used and what you have not used. Let's say you have found, in this example, you have found the specific reasons of how you can improve the marketing, or what factors are causing a degradation to marketing. If you have already identified the factors which are most contributing to the marketing, then what you can do is that try to reduce the dependency on those factors. If at all really possible, try to get rid of a few factors, right? How do you validate whether your findings are really correct or not? You can't find it unless and until the business agrees with you and the business starts to implement that for you, right? So obviously you will need to have that kind of zeal, that kind of, let's say, negotiation power to make people understand that I'm supremely confident on my analysis. If you have any challenges or if you have any problems accepting it, or maybe you have a different point of view, let's have a discussion in depth. I can even show you my code. If you have any technical experts from your side, I'm ready to share my code. Obviously I'm going to share my code because it belongs to our company. It belongs to the problem statement. Because of the problem statement only I collected the data, I wrote the code, I packaged it, and so on. So it all belongs to all of us only. So I am more than happy for you to look at the code. I have no such concerns. If you are able to find my mistakes, please let me know. I'm able to correct that as well. I'm ready to correct that. I'm ready to accept it in front of everybody. But I believe supremely that my analysis is actually correct because I validated it. At each and every stage, 1, 2, 3, and 4, I have validated it. And then I have come to this inescapable conclusion that factors X, Y, and Z are leading to most impact, or they are the most impactful when it comes to the marketing of our company. We would have to somehow try to balance this, and we'll have to somehow find a way to minimize the effects of X, Y, and Z. Now, let's say the business agrees to you. If the business agrees to you, then they're going to do something to control the factors X, Y, and Z. After they have done the control, maybe 3 months, 6 months down the line, you will again be collecting the data for the last 6 months of implementation of these changes or improvements that you have asked for. Then looking at the new set of data only, you again have to do the entire set of the analysis. And you can to some extent automate this as well, which I will tell you. You will again have to do the entire exercise of the data analysis life cycle. Then only you will come to know whether the suggestions which you gave 3 months earlier are valid or not. So your findings get validated only when they are put into use, only when they go into production, or otherwise that will not work, right? So these are by far the 5 most important topics of the requirement analysis stage. We all, irrespective of in which domain we are working, we need to take this very, very seriously so that we never miss even a single point. We can add even more points in here, but please don't miss the validation points, right? I know you may have some questions in here, but let's go on to the next thing that we had to do. Let's look at your MySQL thing, and let's try to see if we can bring up the database. Maybe we can continue tomorrow. If you have any questions, please do let me know, and then we can try to resolve it. Of course, all of these questions will get solved the moment we start doing the use cases, right? So maybe Rohi, if you are using your laptop, I'll stop the sharing. You can share your screen.
Okay, sure. Host disabled participant screen sharing. I'm getting this pop-up. Yeah, now
Okay.
I can share it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So which thing do I start now? I think workbench, right?
Did you get the UI?
Sorry.
Was I on mute? I just shared you a command on the chat window.
Okay, let me check.
You can go to start, you can go to run, and from there you have to run the command services.msc. A new window is going to come up, and if you can just share that window, then we can look into it.
Okay. I forgot that I'm not sharing the current window. You are still seeing the downloads.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the
Mm,
SQL workbench.
okay. If you can share the services.msc thing.
Okay. New share services.msc.
Yeah. Now in this list, can you scroll down, go to the services with starting with name M, and see if there is any service for MySQL? I saw one. If you just go above, yeah. So you have MySQL 8.0 running. Can you right click on that? Yeah. Can you go to properties? I think the property window has to be shared.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I forgot about this is not Teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
okay.
some problem, I think, but MySQL D default file. Very good. Yes. Now what you need to do, you have to restart this service. You can cancel this window.
Okay.
You can go back to your services.msc window. In there, you have to restart the service.
Okay.
After the installation, did you restart the PC as well?
Yeah.
Okay, then it's good.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
restarted.
Now, if you can go back to your, let's say, MySQL workbench.
Let me share that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Why am I not able to see it? Okay, can you go to the local instance tab? Local instance MySQL 80.
Yes, yes. Can you see that now?
Yeah. Okay. I think you are already connected, right?
Yeah, I've opened the command line client also.
Okay, can you go to that home icon which is there on just on top of file? Just on top of file, you will see that home option. Yeah. So here you have a new connection, localhost, and this you have added, or it was there already? This local instance thing you have added, or it was there already?
No, I have not added. I've just opened
Okay. Okay.
the
Can you
command
right
line
click?
client. Okay.
Can you right click on this? And can you click on open
Open connection.
connection? Yeah.
Okay. Is a
Yeah.
new window visible?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
In the query tab. Yeah. Yeah. In the query tab, can you fire a query? No, no. You see that window, right? Which is saying query 1.
Query one. Execute current statement?
No, no. If you can just exit from here.
Okay.
Just press escape. Yeah,
Okay.
and here in this window, right, this query 1 window, if you can
Yes.
just type a command, let's say show databases,
Okay.
show space databases, then you give a semicolon, then you select everything using Control A,
Control A. Okay.
and then you do a Control Enter.
Control Enter. Okay.
Okay, so you can see
Yes.
the results, right? So this means you are connected to the database and you are able to fire the query. So this is where you are going to fire the query. You can close this SQL additions thing which you are seeing on the right hand side. This block of SQL additions thing that you are seeing, you
Okay.
can close this. You just have to find out the option to do so. Maybe it's there in the file menu or in the view menu.
Yeah.
You can close that. The main important areas will be the result grid. The result grid is where you see the output, and then the action tab or the output tab which you see at the bottom. So at the bottom you are going to get details about the queries. So let's say you ran this query at this so and so time and it returned 4 rows. It took approximately 0 seconds, right? So whatsoever commands we were typing, right, in the sessions, we were typing into the command line, right? So you can type the same things here. So let's say if you would like to use the MySQL database, so you can write a command like use MySQL, right? You can use a command like use MySQL, use MySQL, then you give a semicolon, then you can select the statement or the list of statements you want to run. You just have to select the statement and you have to say Control Enter, or you can say that execute button is there on top as well. If you see after that save icon, there is an execute thing just below the query option. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Right. So now you are using the MySQL database. If you do a show tables, you will be able to see all the tables which are there in the MySQL schema. Right. So this is how, this is the advantage of using the workbench. It's like it's kind of a GUI thing. So using the GUI, you will be able to see you have a lot of options now, which we were not getting with respect to the command line. On the left hand side, you have a lot of management option. You have the option to start up and shut down the database and so on. Right?
Okay. Okay.
So it's
Okay.
just going to make your life easy. At any point in time, you want to access the documentation, right? Go to help. Go to that help tab, and here you will find the link to the documentation.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
So I think, yeah.
I don't have to use the command line client in this. I just have to use this one, this SQL workbench.
Yeah, I mean, you can use both. You can use any one that you choose to. But I believe if we are working on Windows, then this one is a very good option.
Okay.
Right? Okay. I think the main problem is solved. No, you have to select the database first. So you need to do show databases, and then you have to
Isn't
select the
it selecting
database.
MySQL already? I
No,
used to.
MySQL and that slash is actually the prompt where you are going
Oh,
to write the query.
okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
you
So
have to
yeah,
do show databases
for
and then you can
databases and all.
select the databases and then.
Yeah. Sure. 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 I will do that.
Okay,
Thanks.
great. I think
Thanks.
we can close the session now. Let's meet tomorrow.
Yes. Yes.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Thanks for
Thank you.
going on.